We all are gonna die. 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 Why don't we help each other prepare for it? Without death there could not be life. I'm talking about end of life conversations, conversations about the end of life. Death and dying, grief and loss, conversations about the end of life.
I believe, and I've heard from so many people, how important it is to plan what you want. And you won't know what they're doing afterwards because you won't be there. But you're putting your voice out there with what you want for those that you love. And that way they can honor what you want.
Welcome to this episode of End of Life Conversations. I'm Reverend Wakil David Matthews.
And I'm the Reverend Mother, Ana Luisa Armendariz. In this podcast, we share people's experiences with death and dying, grief and loss, and the end of life.
We really enjoy all of our excellent and insightful guests. They generously tell their stories with compassion and wisdom. We also want to thank Wakil and Wendy's children and partners for that wonderful introductory song. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're privileged to speak with the author, Rusty Rosman. Rusty spent years helping her parents and her in-laws as they aged. Over the years, Rusty saw many of their friends and their families conflicted over final arrangements and family confrontations. We've all run into that. After making sure the parents updated their estate planning, Rusty encouraged them to write out their final wishes for their funerals and the mourning period, and then what they wanted done with their belongings that weren't covered in their legal documents.
Rusty is one of 4 children. Having her parents put their wishes in writing made the heartbreaking experience of a parent's death much easier for all 4 of them to navigate. From that experience, her book, 2 Envelopes, was born. We're looking forward to getting to know your story and more about your book. Thank you so much, Rusty, for being with us.
I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Well, we always like to kind of get a feel for all of our guests and their lives by asking the first question, which is when you first became aware of death.
In my 30s, both of our parents, both sets of parents had medical needs. And my husband and I decided, rather than going back to work after our last child was born, that I would be the caregiver, the person in charge of what goes on with both sets of families. I was very busy for a good 15 years, driving to doctors, following their directions, making sure the medication was right, that the exercises, anything that they needed was done immediately. So I devoted myself to that as well as raising my children. In retrospect, both of my children now live much of what they saw me doing in their own lives, in their own business, the compassion that my children have because
Beautiful.
of the caregiving and what they saw on a daily basis.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It's lovely. Yes, it is really wonderful to be an active role model for the coming generations so that they can metabolize all this wonderful information you're giving them. So how has death impacted that story from that point in your 30s forward? What's been going on?
Well, lots of my parents' age, my in-laws, went to funerals, and then you went to pay a condolence call. And the fighting that was going on was just heartbreaking. And much of it happened because I know my own mother said, I thought I told you that.
Mm-hmm.
You tell one child and you think you told another, you think you said the same thing to everyone, but you didn't. And it causes nothing but an uproar. So I learned that if you want to be able to grieve wholly and completely, you've got to eliminate the chaos. You have to. So I sat down with my parents. My in-laws wanted no part of it, but my parents did, and they wrote. And then we brought everybody together because I was the only one locally. And we brought everyone together, and I learned feed people before you talk about anything difficult. So we all had lunch. I had 6 boxes of Kleenex for the 6 of us. And our parents explained what they wanted, how they wanted, what to do. And my mother knew she was quite ill, and she was younger than my father, but she knew she was going to die soon. And what to do with Daddy, because Daddy had his own needs and what we need to do for Daddy. And as I said, my siblings didn't live there, but everybody knew where Daddy needed to go and what we needed to do for Daddy. And when the time came, we all did. And there was no argument and no, well, I think this, or, oh, we should do that, or I don't agree. None of
Yeah.
that. That everybody knew because it was talked about ahead of time. And it had nothing to do if we liked it or not. It had to do is that's what Mother said. That's what Dad
Mhm.
did. And so we knew it. The one thing that came very, very clear to me is everybody is concerned about their voice being heard. What everybody's forgetting is the voice that you need to listen to is the person who
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
are
Very sad.
absolutely entitled to their opinion, their thoughts, what is right for them, whether it's right for you or not.
Yeah.
I have a girlfriend who said to me, "Oh, I don't need your book. We already made all those decisions." She already knew she had a plot for her mother. She knew this, that, and the next thing, but she didn't like the officiant that her mother wanted. She said, "Oh, you don't want that one. You want this one." And I said to her, "Whose funeral are we talking about?" She said, "Well, it'll be my mother's." I said, "Who's going to pay for it?" She said, "Well, my mother's estate." I said, "Why can't your mother have the officiant that she wants?" It never occurred to her. This is her mother. It's her choice. And what everybody else forgets is guess whose money you're spending? Their, not yours. It's not yours.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every kid, I know I have spoken all over the country, and this people's eyes get really big when I say this. Your family doesn't owe you a penny, a nickel, a dime, a quarter, or a dollar. Your parents earned the money, protected it, saved it. It's their choice what happens to it, not yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
That changes things a little bit when you stop thinking, well, I don't want to spend it because I'm going to get it. It's not yours, it's theirs.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
Well, it's a very eye opening experience, which I saw happen in my own family.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good segue. We really wanted to help you talk about your book here. Your publisher actually connected to us, and we thought, wow, what a great opportunity to tell people about a book that's specifically about planning and your ideas of first and second envelope. So in your book called Two Envelopes, it says it's about pre-planning, but why two envelopes? And like, what would be in one envelope? What would be in the other?
And envelope number one, I want you to label it number one, open immediately after I die. And the second envelope, number two, open immediately after the funeral, because everybody is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Most important part, doesn't matter what you put in your envelopes. What matters is can your children find it or your loved ones find it ASAP? Because in envelope number one, you'll like this one. What is your name? What is your name? Now, the Social Security does not know me as Rusty Rosman. They do not. I have a different name, but I've never been called that name. So the funeral director is going to need to know what is my name and what is my Social Security number, because they are required by law to connect with the Social Security Department. But do your kids know your Social Security number? I mean, nobody carries that card anymore because you're not supposed to. So where is it? Do you want to be cremated or do you want to be buried? Do you have plots? What do you want done if you're cremated? What do you want done with your ashes? And here's the real big one. If you're from a blended family and you've had children with this spouse, children with that spouse, and some people have also with that spouse, who do you go? And you want to be buried, where do you go?
Mm-hmm.
I have a story that I'm still recovering from. A gentleman who he met his wife in school, they married, lived in state A. And he had a business. They raised their three children. Everybody's happy. His wife died. He bought two plots. He buried his wife. 2 years later, he met a lovely woman from state B, and they lived together almost 30 years. He died. So she's ready to bury him in state B when the kids at state A say, he's going to get buried next to mom. And state B, those kids said, our mom wants to be next to him. Well, they almost ended up in court over what to do. So this is what they did, and I'm still recovering. They cremated him and divided him in half. My sister said, I hope they stirred him. But he divided one half of him is in state A, and the other half of him is state B. Is that what he wanted? Say so and put it in envelope number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do like that though. It's very Solomonic, right? Or like Solomon would have cut that baby in half. It's like I kind of like that.
I've met with over 3 dozen funeral directors. I've met with many cemetery executive directors. It is not unusual that when somebody's cremated that they are put in 4 or 5, 6 different boxes
Yeah.
and given different family members. What do you do with the box after you die? What do your kids do with it? What do you want to happen to it? This requiring thinking, and write it down and put it in envelope number 1. And then they'll
Yeah.
know. And the
Yeah.
best of all is to date it and to sign it. And one of the things, how does your family get into the cell phone? Write it down and put it in either envelope number 1 or number 2, but there's a code. They don't know what it is. They just know you hold up the phone and there you are. The same thing with passwords to your computer. Put that in there. All these kind of things that you think, oh, fun. It's not funny, but in envelope number 1, it's perfectly fair to say, please notify the following people. People you worked with that your kids may not know. Cousins that you know that live here, there, and everywhere, but they've never met them. They wouldn't know to let them know. Neighbors that you live next door to that you exchange Christmas cards with. Your kids don't know, they're off living their own lives. The people you want notified that you've died, how to notify them. Is it email? Is it snail mail?
Yeah.
The things that you did in your life, because look at what you're doing now. But your kids really didn't know you until they were really about 10 years old. They were busy being a kid and you were mom, dad. But what did you do in your college years? Were you in charge of this? Did you participate in that? Were you arrested? Were you this? Were you that? Were you, marching in the Vietnam War? What were you doing that you want the officiant to talk about? I was at a funeral and my friend was the officiant, and he was so upset when the funeral was over because the kids could not think of anything to tell him about their mother, who was 83, except she liked to knit. Oh, there's a whole
Yeah.
lot more in her life than just knitting. Help your family, help the officiant.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So those kind of things.
I feel like this is also like a practice in really, when I think about your book, I think about you're going to spend that time writing down this list of items, but it's also a really good opportunity to actually pick up the phone and call your kids and talk about things because, I feel like most people assume that they've caught on. I think my kids would actually have too much to say at my funeral because every now I have a snafu and my daughter's like, oh, I'm going to write that one down because I'm definitely going to say that one at your memorial. It is about communication ultimately, right? And storytelling and sharing the parts of yourself that get kind of just swept along with the tide of time,
Life.
right?
Yeah, life. Yeah.
So,
and there's also something we talk about in the class is the importance of going back and looking at what you wrote down maybe a year later because it can all change, right? So that's
that you go into your envelopes once a year. I know I collected January 1 and every January. And if you change anything, date it and sign it.
Yeah.
Number 2 is just as important. You want your kids to know how to get into your computer. If you have a pet, who's the vet? They may not know. If you lease your car, you picked it up at ABC dealership, and so they take it back there. But they don't know that the paperwork is over there in that city. They don't know those things. What you need to do is think, if I was the one taking care of me, closing things down, what about the medication you have on automatic refill? They're busy taking care of this, that, and the next thing. They open the mailbox and there's, 8 bills, which is being charged to the credit card. So you need to tell them how to go about finding what you need to shut down.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
Really something that only you really know,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because our kids now, at our age, our kids are busy with their own lives and their own family. And while you think they know, they're busy with so much else, they may not remember. So writing it down is helpful.
Yeah. Ana Luisa's kids are still nearby, but mine are definitely off and running. Yeah.
I don't live in my state. So they don't
that's good.
know what's going on. My kids were here until they were 18, off to college, then off to professional, and now living their lives in different states with their own families.
Yeah.
I have no idea where medication comes from or who the doctors are.
I'm hoping that our podcast and the work that we're doing out in the world will also help more younger families and millennials and Gen Zers, Yers, whatever they are, to be curious. And I feel like the really young people are really curious. Like my kids actually have all that information that you just said, Rusty, because they have the master password to my LastPass. And, they know everything. They're in my business so much. And I offer it to them. I've not been the parent who obscures health issues, mental health issues, or hard stories about, so-and-so person should not be at my funeral. And, again, it's like my 16 and 18-year-old could probably do a really good job tomorrow in burying me and having everything taken care of because I have been pounding this into their heads since they were really little.
Yeah.
Not. They're both busy 24/7 with their
Yeah.
own families and their professions and on call and all the other things that they're doing. And there's an awful lot in each person's head,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
which is why envelope number 2 is where you put your insurance policy, technologies. You want the other thing, and I want to go back to envelope number 1. It is important that you gather your information that your kids will need. For instance, they'll get death certificates from the funeral director, but some places will ask for a birth certificate just to verify that you are you. I heard a story from a woman, I think she lived in Nebraska, that her husband had every single cable thing you could have. He was paying close to $500 a month. And in order to shut it down, which she wanted to do, they required the death certificate, the marriage certificate, and his birth certificate. Well, she got the
Wow.
death and the marriage. She couldn't find his birth certificate. Long story short, he wasn't born in that state. And he was older. Nobody was around to know where was he born. It took them 18 months to find where he was born to get the certificate. She paid on that bill for 18 months until she was able to prove that he was the one that had the, and 18 months she paid over $500 for something she didn't want. So
Well, yeah.
that you really need to think about because your kids may not know that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Legal, financial, designating, health directives, pets, your jewelry, your art, genealogy. If you're a genealogist for your family and you've made the whole record, where do they find it? Because it's on your computer. To make copies for everybody. So somebody might want to do that. Photo albums. I went and had copies made of all these things, so all 4 of us would have, but not everybody, wants to do that. But those are all important things to think about and to be prepared. And that's what goes in envelope number 2. And then I'd
Perfect.
like to share with you and your listeners the last thing that I suggest. And I wrote this. Writing a love letter to your children and putting in an envelope number 2 is a gift to you and to them. This is the perfect opportunity to say what you want to your children. These are your children. These are your babies. Let them hear your voice and your memories. Writing your letter, if you're able, rather than typing it, gives them a recognizable piece of you. You will feel better and they will all feel your love. This is truly a gift from you to them. And I would like to quote Genesis chapter 49. Before the biblical partner Jacob died, he gathered his family around his bed to bless his family and to say goodbye.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Not every child fulfills a parent's dream for them, but you were given this gorgeous little thing to hold and to love. It's still your child.
Yeah,
And some people don't know what to write. So it's perfectly fine to say, I loved you from the second I knew you were going to be born, and I will love you forever.
yeah, yeah. The whole 2 envelopes or the planning process that we talk about, the advanced care planning, all those things, really all of that is a gift that you're giving to the people who are going to have to deal with this, right? So yeah, it's great that you've got all those things written down and that somebody that one resource I found said, have a party once a year instead of your birth party, have a death party. Invite all those people that you want to take care of things for you and make sure they really want to do it still,
Yeah. And don't be surprised if the person you expect to take care of everything dies before you do.
That happens, yeah.
Which is why I just like to show this, if I may. This is the book. It's called 2 Envelopes, What You Want Your Loved Ones to Know When You Die.
Yeah,
And
good.
it's on Amazon, and Barnes & Noble can get it for you. Walmart can get it for you. So I am
Perfect.
very proud of the book, and I am extremely proud of the wonderful things that people say after they have read the book and done everything inside, of the relief that they feel. They feel satisfied because so many people I know, their children just don't live near them.
Yeah.
And, you have one here, one somewhere else. And that way, everybody knows the same thing. So what you want to do is eliminate the chaos so your kids can grieve.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges that you face with your work?
Well, the biggest challenge that I had was when I spoke with different funeral directors, was the shock that I have of how many families fight in their office. I was
Mhm.
absolutely shocked. And that it's very unusual that everybody is on the same page. What do you mean you're going to bury him? Why this? No matter who I talked to, no matter what religion it was. And especially, it was interesting in the Muslim world, in so many of the younger people who are a lot more liberal are not real thrilled. When the older kids in the family want it more traditional, and that isn't what they want for themselves. But again, it's not what you want, it's what your loved one wants.
Yeah,
And getting that
exactly.
idea across
Yep.
is the hard part. It's what
Yeah,
your loved one wants. You are
yeah,
facilitating for them. It's not about you, it's about them.
yeah. That's exactly right. Well, we always like to also check in with our guests and just ask you if anything, what frightens you most about the end of life?
That's a good question. I don't want any pain.
Hmm.
And I hope to God I'll be able to see my children before I die because they
Yeah,
live in other states. And I don't know if I'll live longer than my husband or my husband will live longer than me, but I hope that we will be together when the time comes that one of us has to go.
yeah, yeah. Beautiful.
A loved one is with me. I would prefer that rather than
Mhm.
alone.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how
That's
I
Good.
lovely.
Yeah, that's important.
So you've been doing all this work, you're connecting with folks. How do you keep yourself resourced? How do you take care of yourself so that this doesn't become a grind for you and you're tired and you talk about this all the time, but does it? Is it, how do
no.
you
In fact, this book has given me, I'm 78 years old. It has given me a boost that I never expected at this point in my life.
Mhm.
I've
Mm.
been very busy with business and community work that I do. I'm on several of the township boards and I've done them for 40 years. And I like doing those things. But at my age, people are winding down. I'm going the other way.
Good for you. I like
I am
that.
traveling the country and I have been talking about my book and selling it. And I have been energized, really
Good.
energized by it. And I've had the fun of watching my husband be so energized by it.
Beautiful.
That's nice, honey. That's terrific. Yay, you.
Mhm.
And then when I went to a book fair and I presented my book, there were over 100 people there. It was standing room only. And then they all lined up to buy the book. It took me an hour and a half to sign books. He was blown away.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
it was like, wow. So he's been 100% ever since. But what I love, and I really love, and my husband loves, is people saying how important it was for them to read the book and to do the envelopes. I just got off the phone about 20 minutes before we got on with a friend who was just turned 80, and she couldn't thank me enough because
Mm-hmm.
her son doesn't live here. Her daughter is not so attentive. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm so relieved, and
Mhm.
they both know where to find it and whatever.
Beautiful. I
So
love that.
I love it because I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
Did
And that's
that.
great that it
I
supports you and makes you
think
feel,
I can help people feel what I feel because I'm
yeah,
very, very satisfied that
yeah.
I'm prepared. My husband is prepared. We both have separate envelopes, by the way. He has his.
Good. As it should
Yeah.
be.
We were flying back from Europe, and the man next to my husband was telling him all about his Sky Miles and that when you're dead, you can assign them to a family member. And my husband got so excited, came home, went and got his envelope, put in there who we wanted to have as Sky
Mm.
Miles. So satisfied.
Right.
I know, yeah, Sky Miles, but he was. And that's what it's about. It's about you and what makes you satisfied. What gives
Yes, yes.
your sense of satisfaction?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Miles did it for him.
I
That's
love it.
great. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
every time we do the class, I find one more thing. Somebody says, "Oh, yeah, have you thought about this?" That we can add into that list and I have a checklist that people can go through. And yeah, Sky Miles, I think, is in there, but if it's not, I'm certainly going to add it. A lot of those things have ways you can just assign beneficiaries or transfer on death kind of things. Most of those things, even like, of course, your properties and stuff, but things like your car or an insurance or trusts that you have, some of those are, you need to put the name down. And the other thing we found, one of the newer ones I found recently, was all of your social media accounts. You can say who's in charge of it when you die. You can create beneficiaries for those and who takes over. So another good thing to have on there. So yeah, thank you. This is really, it's always good I think, to just really think about this and to.
Really
So I'm
did.
really glad you put this together.
Say in my book is take the time to think.
Yeah.
Perfect story. There was a family. They got married. The husband and wife got married right after the Depression finished. They had $86 between them. They drove to New York City for their honeymoon and stayed with relatives on the way. Can you imagine? But they did. But they wrote a list of someday we want to have. And 37 years later, they crossed off the last thing on the list, which was a grandfather clock. Well, they had 4 children. They had one clock. Who gets it? Do you want kids to fight about it? Or do you want to say, I want so and so to have it, and why?
Yeah.
Because the other 3 are going to go, mother, father said why, who, and why. And if they want to be mad, they can't be mad at each other. They can be mad at mom, but she's not there. But it's those kind of things because they'll fight over anything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that happens a lot.
I'm sure you've heard every story. I've heard every story, and it's and you think to yourself, are you fighting over that? But people do.
Yeah.
They do.
I wish more people would just like also gift things to like libraries or community centers because, you know, in some ways, like some items could be better utilized in the greater world for more joy than just sitting in a kid's, you know, foyer because they don't know how to absorb it into their own space and stuff. So I'm like,
And Anoise has told some fun stories about her kids saying, I want that toy when you leave.
I have a lot of toys, and so I thought they would be okay, but they're starting to ask me for specific things, and they're you know, an old Patagonia jacket that both of them just recently wore, and my son was like, "Hey, I want that when you die," and my son was like, "No, I actually want it. I called dibs on that jacket." So I'm like, I might have to just use it to the end.
Number 2.
And just give it away. Like maybe it'll just disappear to somebody else who would really enjoy it because I don't want them to be fighting.
Fight. Yeah,
it's still your jacket. So if you donate it somewhere, it won't be there.
Yeah, exactly. But I have been thinking about that, how, especially about generational wealth right now, that's moving from the boomers down to Xers, Yers, anybody, and how it just continues to stay in this one little quadrant of this world. And I think, if I ever have any money, I am going to like give it to like the community because I don't, you know, this whole process of just hoarding our stuff from generation to generation, and then there's fighting. Like it almost feels like now it's infused with this energy of scarcity, and there shouldn't be. We should all just be like, pass it along.
Spread it around. Yes, indeed.
Thing that you just said, because I have a friend who did do that and left their money for the children to go to college. But one of her grandchildren was not going to college. And what do you do about that kid? What do you do if, you know, each one supposedly gets $30,000 and that one's not going to college? What do you do with that one? So I don't know the answer, and I say so in my book. But this is the time to think these things out, talk about it, write it down, put it in your envelope. You change your mind. It's in your house. It's not in a safety deposit box. Go and, you know, if you want to change it. That's why I say date things and sign them. So people know. But those are real issues and people go to war about. And I can truly tell you, World War III is not going to be between countries. It's going to be
between siblings.
Yep. You've seen it, you've heard it, and you know, eyes open wide and go, oh my God, you know, are you kidding me? But it's real.
Yep.
It's very
exactly
the people who are affected by whatever that choice is.
Yep.
Exactly.
So again, I say it is your voice. This is your life you're talking about. These are your possessions. You get to choose and say so to the kids that, you know, in the envelope, this is what Daddy and I have chosen, or I have chosen, and this is what we want. And I know my mother said to us, this is what we've chosen to give to you. If you like it, great. If you don't, feel free to trade among yourselves, give it away, sell it, whatever you want. But this is what we've chosen to give to you. And
perfect.
That made Shalom Bayit, peace in the house.
Yeah.
It was from up high. It was mother said. And all in our 40s going into our 50s, mother said. Yeah. And that's what we did.
Perfect. Yeah, really good.
Or of us, friends.
We like to give you a chance at the end to tell us anything. You know, first of all, tell us how people can get a hold of you. If you have a website, or we'll definitely put those links in the podcast notes. And also, is there anything else that we didn't ask you that you'd like to share with us?
Thank you. You can always reach me at Rusty Rosman. It's RUSTYROSMAN at gmail.com. And the name of my book is Two, spelled TWO, Envelopes, S. What You Want Your Loved Ones to Know When You Die. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart. All of those are .com.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
I
Yeah.
so appreciate the opportunity to visit with both of you. And it was a real learning experience from hearing what you do and sharing what I do. And it's a good thing that we do because nobody likes to talk about death.
Nobody.
Mhm.
Yep.
Nobody, oh, that's not going to happen to me. I
Yep.
have a girl that said, I can't talk about it because my mother's never going to die. I said, okay. And her mother's never going to die. Now, you and I know differently, but she can't. She can't.
Mhm.
And she
Yeah.
won't. And so she'll live with whatever she needs to do. But I believe, and I've heard from so many people, how important it is to plan what you want. And you won't know what they're doing afterwards because you won't be there. But you're putting your voice out there with what you want for those that you love.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
way they can honor what you want. So
Yeah.
I thank you so much for the
Thank
opportunity
you, Rusty. We appreciate you. Thank you.
to your audience. And thank you for inviting me. I so enjoyed being here.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks.
you.
It was
Yeah.
great to talk with you, and we'll put all those in the notes, and we'll let you know when it's going to be live, so you can send it out to all your friends. And if you have friends or people you've run into who have a good story, have them listen to the podcast and get in touch. We're always looking for more things.
Wonderful. It was so nice to meet you both.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for having me. It was very honored that you asked.
Yep.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on the End of Life Conversations. We appreciate you and look forward to sharing our stories. We encourage you to subscribe to have access to premium episodes and extra resources. Links to our guests and their recommendations and a transcript of this episode will be in the podcast notes.
Yes, thank you so much. And please tell all your friends. Follow us on social media. And again, consider subscribing for some excellent premium content. We want to acknowledge that the music we are using was composed and produced by Charles Heastand. We also want to acknowledge that we live on unceded lands that have been cared for thousands of years by Indigenous peoples who are still here.